America is filled with strange places, but some locations take secrecy to an entirely different level. These are places you cannot visit. Places with round-the-clock guards, locked gates, surveillance systems that can detect a bird flapping its wings, and warning signs that leave out the one detail everyone wants to know. Why? Mount Weather in Virginia looks like a normal wooded mountain from the outside, but beneath the trees is one of the most secret and heavily guarded facilities in the country. It is so secure that almost nothing about what happens inside has ever been released publicly. What we do know goes back to a single catastrophic event. On December 1st, 1974, a TWA flight crashed into the mountain during a storm. Local firefighters rushed toward the impact site, only to be intercepted by federal agents. The rescuers were ordered to leave immediately and were told that the federal government would handle it. This was the first time ordinary Americans even realized there was something inside Mount Weather. Freedom of Information Act requests later revealed that Mount Weather is a continuity of government site. This means that in a national crisis, the country's most important leaders can be evacuated here. But that explanation is only part of the story. The facility has grown over the decades. Additional underground levels exist, but are classified. Entire sections of the compound remain off limits even to government employees without specific clearance. The location is guarded 24 hours a day by armed personnel, motion detectors, and sensors buried underground. Anyone approaching the fences is confronted almost instantly. Despite this, no official document explains what is in the deepest sections of the facility or why it requires continuous military-grade protection even during peaceful times. And that is what keeps Mount Weather on the list.
Number 5. Isle Grand Shrine, Japan. Japan is known worldwide for its shrine culture and has nearly 80,000 shrines in total. The most prominent out of all is the Isle Grand Shrine. It's one of the most expensive temples in Japan, credited to its architectural magnificence. To keep the Shinto traditions, which go back to the 8th century, this temple is reconstructed once every 20 years. That's why this temple is so expensive. Only members of the royal family are granted access to this prestigious ancient representation sacred to the Japanese. Due to this, the general public is not allowed beyond the sight of the thatched roofs of the central structures hidden behind 4 tall wooden fences. Number 4. North Brother Island. North Brother Island is a small island located in New York City's East River between the mainland Bronx and Rikers Island. Now, not only is this island forbidden, it's also hidden, overrun by weeds, and unsafe for the public. Plus, its sensitive ecosystem is much safer without visitors. This dystopian-looking island was abandoned 50 years ago, but prior to that, in the mid-19th century, North Brother Island was filled with people. At this time in history, disease and illness were rampant in New York, and this isolated island was the perfect location for the sick to be quarantined. Riverside Hospital was relocated there and had been founded in the 1850s as the smallpox hospital to treat and isolate victims of that disease. Its mission eventually expanded to other quarantinable diseases. Now, the island was also the site of a wreck of the General Slocum, a steamship that burned in 1904, where 1,021 people died either from fire on board the ship or from drowning before the ship beached on the island shores. Safe to say, this island has seen a lot of horrors, so much that it has been nicknamed Hell's Gate for its dangerous waters and is rightfully off limits. Number 3. Surtsey Island, Iceland. Surtsey is a small island situated on the south coast of Iceland. It was created as a consequence of a volcanic explosion that continued for 4 years. Surtsey is also known globally for being the newest island on the globe. It was formed just 55 years ago, which meant scientists had the unique opportunity to observe the birth and evolution of an ecosystem from scratch. This fascinating event is precisely what makes its access restricted to the rest of the world. It all began in 1963 when a violent volcanic eruption 32 kilometers south of Iceland resulted in the formation of Surtsey. Bacteria, fungi, and molds were the first to arrive on the island. Subsequently, the number of animal and plant species increased exponentially. According to UNESCO, it's estimated that around 89 species of birds and 335 invertebrates populate the area. In order to not alter this development, only researchers are allowed to visit the island, which again makes a lot of sense. They want to protect this island, but the whole idea of this is just really cool. Number 2. Snake Island, Brazil. As per the name, Snake Island is an island in Brazil packed with thousands of poisonous snakes. Yep, just Just load it up all in there. No human even dares to risk their life stepping on Snake Island, and if you were to try, you'd be stupid. Snake Island has a reputation as the most forbidden place in the world, not only in Brazil. This place is so deadly that the government has announced it's prohibited by law to step onto the island. It's calculated that there are nearly 4,000 golden laceheads crawling around the island. These are the most poisonous serpents known on Earth. So even if you were able to go on the island, you'd probably get bitten by a snake and die, which I feel like isn't worth it. I know I wouldn't risk it. And I mean, if a snake doesn't hurt you, the government will, as it's illegal to go there, so neither of those sounds like a good option. Plus, who wants to go to a place called Snake Island? Please, stay away from there. And coming in at number 1, North Sentinel Island, India. North Sentinel Island is one of the most forbidden places in the world. It is where the Sentinelese tribe resides. The people occupying the island usually resolve to violence to keep their isolation still ongoing. The Sentinelese tribe have existed on the island for more than 50,000 years as per their protection given by the Indian government. This island is stringently forbidden for any visitors of any kind. Throughout history, encounters with the population have been met with violence. In 2006, they ended the lives of 2 fishermen whose boat had been dragged by the current on their shores. According to The Guardian, a 3-mile restriction zone prevents visitors from entering the territory. And according to Survival, an NGO for the rights of indigenous and tribal peoples, the Indian government has abandoned any plans to contact the Sentinels. The entire tribe could be wiped out by diseases to which they have no immunity, which is why authorities respect their wish to remain uncontacted. Number 10. The Hollywood Sign, California. I think you all know what I'm talking about when I bring up the Hollywood sign. Now, you might be confused, it's a huge tourist attraction. Yes, it is, but there are areas around the sign that are prohibited. The closest you can get to the sign is behind and above it, where you can enjoy the fabulous view of the city. Why can't you get up right and personal though? Well, the sign is on a rough, steep terrain, so there are barriers to prevent unauthorized access. In the year 2000, the Los Angeles Police Department actually installed a security system featuring motion detection and closed-circuited cameras. Any movement in the marked restricted areas triggers an alarm that notifies the police, therefore you cannot touch the sign. This place is heavily surveilled as it's monitored 24/7 by the Los Angeles Police and Fire Departments and park rangers. Although some people have gotten through security to vandalize the sign. I mean, does anyone remember Hollyweed on January 1st, 2017? Despite that though, it remains mostly prohibited. Number 9. Roberts Island, Suffolk County, New York. Located just off of Long Island, this private island is not only extremely valuable, it's impossible to access. The 435-acre teardrop of land belongs to billionaire businessman Louis Bacon and is thought to be worth around $500 million. He purchased it in 1993 at the bankruptcy court auction for $11 million. He has made significant investments into restoring the neglected island, going so far as to import full-grown oak trees to replace ones harvested for lumber years later. Some non-native grasses were removed from the island and replaced, and hunters reduced an overgrown deer population. The island also has the healthiest turtle population in the state, which includes the eastern mud turtle. Lewis has spent years rebuilding the ecosystem, and he believes that allowing others on the island will lead to its destruction, so no one can visit. And I mean, that is a pretty good reason, no? Number 8. Lascaux Caves, France. Lascaux Caves is a network of caves near the village of Montigny. Over 600 wall paintings cover the interior walls and ceilings of the cave. The paintings represent primarily large animals, typical local contemporary fauna that correspond with the fossil record of the Upper Paleolithic in the area. They are the combined effort of many generations, and with continued debate, the age of the paintings is now usually estimated at around 17,000 years. They're beautiful, but unfortunately the cave was sealed to the common public following 1963 in order to preserve the site, which is listed as a World Heritage Site by the UNESCO. However, in order to allow everyone to admire the masterpieces of prehistory, a reconstruction of the Lascaux site has been made so you can do a virtual tour, which is still pretty cool. Archaeologists concluded that human proximity might ruin the ancient work of art, so you can only enjoy it through your screen. Number 7. The Whites Club, UK. Okay, so men can enter this place, but women can't. And if you're non-binary, I don't really know what to tell you. At White's, the club is so exclusive that few have ever managed to sneak inside and find out what really goes on in there. There are, incredibly, certain places in the world where women are forbidden access, the best known probably being gentlemen's clubs, which are very popular within British culture. Founded in 1693 and located at 37 St. James Street in Piccadilly, the members of the White's Club include political leaders, senior bankers, and even heirs to the British throne, so yeah, Prince William is a part of this club. The restriction on women is so strict, only the late Queen Elizabeth has ever managed to gain entry, but I mean, she was the queen, it's not like they could have said no. According to the Telegraph in 2013, David Cameron voluntarily left the select club, saying, "I'm dismayed the club does not accept women as members. I find that inexplicable in this day and age, I really do." The members of London's oldest and most elitist gentlemen's club has shrunk to 500, and its bar has been open for over 200 years. Number 6. Doomsday Vault, Norway. The Doomsday Vault is a seed bank located in the middle of the Arctic Svalbard archipelago. There are 3 vaults leading off from the chamber, but only one is currently in use, and its door is covered in a thick layer of ice, hinting at the sub-zero temperatures inside. In here, the seeds are stored in vacuum-packed silver packets and test tubes in large boxes that are neatly stacked on floor-to-ceiling shelves. These boxes potentially hold the keys to the future of global food security. These seeds are here in case of a catastrophic event. Now, over the past 50 years, agricultural practices have changed dramatically, but while crop yields have increased, biodiversity has decreased to the point that now only about 30 crops provide 95% of human food energy needs. The US has lost over 90% of its fruit and vegetable varieties since the 1900s. This monoculture nature of agriculture leaves food supplies more susceptible to threats such as diseases and drought. Due to all this, the vault isn't open to the public, and it can allow entry to special guests, but only on certain days.
The town knows the antennas are there, but no one knows what they are listening to. Sugar Grove is home to one of the most secure communications facilities in the country. While parts of the site have been publicly acknowledged, certain sections remain unlisted and inaccessible. These areas are surrounded by additional fencing and guarded separately from the main facility. Personnel who work in one section are not allowed into the other. Even contractors are restricted based on compartmentalized clearance. Officially, the facility handles satellite communications, but internal documents released through FOIA requests are heavily redacted and provide no detail about specific operations. What is known is that this location operates 24 hours a day and is treated as a high-value intelligence asset. Any approach to restricted zones triggers immediate response, and what the government listens for here and why certain sectors are hidden even from oversight remains unanswered. Everyone talks about the gold vault, but no one talks about the buildings around it. Fort Knox is famous for its gold vault. The vault itself is heavily guarded, which is expected. What is less understood is why several nearby buildings are guarded with the same intensity. These auxiliary structures have no public description, they are not part of the visitor center, they do not house offices, yet armed guards patrol them continuously. Satellite imagery shows that some of these buildings have underground access points. Power and ventilation systems run between them and the main vault. The US Treasury has never explained what these structures contain. Given the level of protection, analysts believe these buildings may store materials beyond gold. Possibilities include classified financial records, emergency currency reserves, or assets not publicly disclosed. Whatever the case, the security suggests these buildings are just as important as the vault itself. This warehouse looks ordinary, but it has armed guards and no public inventory. Located near Palmdale, California, is a FEMA-controlled warehouse that receives regular shipments but has no listed contents. The building is guarded 24 hours a day by federal officers. Unlike typical FEMA warehouses, this facility does not participate in disaster response drills. Its trucks do not deploy during emergencies, yet deliveries continue year-round. The warehouse draws significant power and contains underground storage sections according to construction permits. Surveillance cameras cover the entire perimeter and nearby roads. When journalists attempted to inquire about the warehouse, FEMA declined to provide details and cited national security exemptions. The existence of underground sections suggests long-term storage rather than temporary supplies, but FEMA has never confirmed what is stored there or why it requires constant protection. Cheyenne Mountain is famous, but there are tunnels that extend beyond it it that are not publicly acknowledged. These tunnels are not listed on public diagrams. However, geological surveys and maintenance records confirm their existence. The tunnels are guarded separately from the main complex. Entry points are hidden and monitored. Motion sensors detect movement underground. The government has never explained the purpose of these extended tunnels. They do not appear to be escape routes. They are too large for simple utilities. Former contractors have stated that some sections contain sealed chambers that were never used during their time there. Despite the lack of public purpose, the tunnels remain under constant surveillance. Inside a base known for biological research is a building with no name and non-stop guards. Fort Detrick in Maryland houses major medical research facilities. Most buildings are well documented, but one building is not. This structure has no signage, no public designation, and no accessible records describing its function. It is guarded at all times by military police. Employees working nearby report that deliveries are handled under strict protocols. Access requires clearance beyond what is typical for the base. The Department of Defense has never acknowledged the building publicly. Requests for information are denied. Given Fort Detrick's history, speculation ranges widely, but the truth remains locked behind security checkpoints. There are tunnels under the Capitol that most officials will never see. Washington, D.C. has an extensive underground network. While some tunnels are public knowledge, others are not. Certain access points are guarded around the clock. These entrances lead to underground federal facilities that are not described in any public document. Security cameras monitor these areas constantly. Federal officers restrict access even to maintenance crews. The government has never released a full map of underground federal infrastructure beneath the city. What exists has been pieced together from leaks and construction records. The level of protection suggests these facilities play a critical role in national operations, but exactly what that role is remains unknown. Most people think Camp David is just a retreat, but very few know what exists beneath it. Camp David in Maryland is widely known as the Presidential Retreat. It is heavily guarded above ground, which makes sense, but below the cabins and forest trails is something rarely discussed. During the Cold War, an underground facility was built beneath Camp David. Officially, it was described as a secure shelter and communications hub. However, documents released decades later show that the underground sections are far larger than the surface complex. The facility includes reinforced chambers, independent power systems, and deep tunnels that connect multiple sections of the property. These areas are guarded constantly by federal security, separate from the guards protecting the surface cabins. What makes this unusual is that Camp David is already close to Washington and already protected by NORAD airspace. The added underground security suggests a function far beyond a simple shelter. Former maintenance workers have stated that there are sealed sections they were never allowed to enter. Even Secret Service personnel assigned to Camp David are restricted from certain underground areas. No official explanation has ever clarified what these deeper sections are used for today or why they remain guarded at all times, even when no president is present. This missile site was officially shut down decades ago, yet it is still guarded like it's operational. Across the United States, former missile sites were decommissioned after the Cold War. Most became parks or were abandoned completely, but one site near Everglades National Park in Florida stands out. This location is fenced, monitored, and patrolled 24 hours a day. Security cameras remain active, gates are locked, and federal officers respond immediately to anyone attempting to access the area. According to public records, the site was deactivated in the 1970s. No weapons are supposed to be stored there, no testing is supposed to occur, yet the infrastructure has been maintained. Satellite imagery shows that underground launch bunkers remain intact, power lines still run into the site, ventilation systems are operational. Local officials have asked why the area remains restricted and receive no answer. The National Park Service defers to federal authorities, the Department of Defense claims no active role, and despite this, guards never leave. For a site that's supposedly empty, it's treated like something inside still matters. This vault stores music and film, but one section is guarded more heavily than the rest, and no one really explains why. Granite Mountain Records Vault in Utah is famous for storing master recordings and films. It is dug into a granite mountain and designed to survive disasters. Most of the facility is well documented, however, there is a restricted wing that is not included in public descriptions or tours. This section is protected by separate security, requires additional clearance, and remains inaccessible even to most vault vault employees. Former staff have stated that the restricted wing contains materials that are not entertainment related. Deliveries arrive under escort, equipment inside is different from the rest of the vault, and the doors are reinforced far beyond what would be needed to protect audio recordings. The company that operates the vault has never commented on the purpose of the restricted wing, and government agencies have also declined to confirm any involvement. Given the vault's ability to survive nuclear-level disasters, analysts believe the restricted section may store classified data backups or government records, but without confirmation, it remains an unanswered question. There is a base in North Carolina that officially does not exist, but its security is impossible to miss. Harvey Point defense testing activity is located near Hertford, North Carolina. It is commonly associated with the CIA, though the agency rarely acknowledges it publicly. The compound is surrounded by fences, sensors, and armed guards. Airspace above it is restricted, boats are prohibited from approaching the shoreline nearby, and publicly Harvey Point is described as a testing site for equipment, but this explanation does not match the size of the facility or the level of the security. Satellite images reveal mock urban environments, airstrips, firing ranges, and structures designed to resemble foreign cities. Underground sections have been confirmed through construction records, but their purpose remains classified. Despite its size and activity, very little information about Harvey Point has ever been released. Even local government officials are kept at a distance. The facility is real, the guards are real, the reason behind the secrecy remains unknown.
Number 5. Franklin Castle. Rumors about the eerie castle began to surface after multiple deaths occurred in the Tideman family while living in the mansion. Hans, the father, allegedly tore down another house on the property where 4 of his children had died. His first wife, Louisa, died inside Franklin Castle in the 1890s, and he would eventually bury 3 more of his children and his mother. Since then, the location has been the site of mysterious hauntings. A family with 6 children called the Romanos had moved into the house, and on the day they moved in, 2 of their children said they'd encountered a crying girl in white on the 3rd floor. But when Miss Romano investigated, no one was there. Soon, the family started hearing haunting organ music and heavy footsteps. 2 of the older Romano children woke up one night to find something yanking blankets off their bed, and Miss Romano once awoke to find herself screaming on her bedroom floor with an unseen presence screaming beside her. A priest advised the Romanos to move out, and in 1974 they did, but the hauntings didn't stop when they left. From there, the house was sold again and again and again. Each new occupant reported strange occurrences like passing through odd vapors, hearing a child crying, or seeing a woman in black standing in the window. Unfortunately, this house is privately owned, so you cannot go and explore all the spookiness, but there is a lot of rich history here. Number 4. Warner and Swasey Observatory. The Taylor Road Observatory was gifted to the Case School of Applied Science in 1919 by the Warner and Swasey Telescope Company. The original building was a domed tower construction with a powerful telescope that took advantage of the relatively undeveloped Cleveland sky that was at the time much more free of light pollution. The site continued to develop in the decades, growing with more buildings and facilities, but unfortunately by 1950, the growth of the nearby city was shining too much ambient light into the night sky, and the telescope had to be moved to a new location in Arizona. The Taylor Road facility continued to conduct astronomical research in the 1970s, but the site was completely abandoned in 1982. Vines and decay accumulated on the walls as time and neglect took their toll on the observatory. However, it was finally repurchased in 2005 by real estate mogul Nair Al-Mahid, who planned on returning the site into a luxury home. Unfortunately, his renovation didn't happen because in 2007 he was convicted of fraud and sent directly to jail. Today, the observatory continues to stand off Taylor Road, and it's best not to trespass and enter the building though because the area is unsafe. Number 3. The Peters Cartridge Company. The Peters Cartridge Company was once an integral part of the local munitions production industry, but now the factory is abandoned. Built in the 1860s, a large building complex was established to support the Peters Cartridge Company. The factory began producing shot and cannonballs for the Union Army during the Civil War, and then continued to produce American munitions into the 1950s. The factory had a lot of accidents though. In 1890, several train cars loaded with gunpowder gunpowder collided and exploded, ending the lives of 20 factory workers. There were a number of fires and machinery accidents as well, leaving employees maimed and physically disabled. Before the factory finally closed, the site was repurposed to press vinyl for Columbia Records, but eventually nothing was made of the tall brick buildings. As the factory buildings are extremely decayed, local police supervised the Peters Cartridge Company closely. Urban exploration is not advised, as floorboards are rotten and elevator shafts are empty in the buildings. Number 2. Helltown. Yep, you heard that right. Why anyone would want to go to Helltown with a name like that, I have no clue. Founded in 1806, Boston Village, aka Helltown's claim to fame was that it was standing as the oldest village in Summit County. Boston's relatively uneventful life took for a turn for the worst in 1974 when the National Park Service decided that Boston Township would be the new home for a new national park and began buying the properties of its longtime residents. The empty homes were boarded up and adorned with US no trespassing signs. But then the government quickly fell behind on its plan to create the park and the village sat neglected. The hellish aura of the area only continued to grow when rangers visiting the site became ill and covered in rashes. It was soon discovered the dump was highly polluted with toxic chemicals improperly disposed of. Also in the village there is a church which is said to have been built by Satanists, complete with upside down crosses. There's an abandoned bus that is said to be host to a lingering ghost, and maybe the most outlandish of all, there is talk of mutants who were created by the chemical spill, including a monstrous snake known as the Peninsula Python. And coming in at number 1, Lima Tuberculosis Hospital. The Lima Tuberculosis Hospital was a tuberculosis sanatorium built in 1911 to deal with the leading causes of death in the United States in the early 20th century. Opening in 1911, it held 24 beds originally and was remodeled in 1927 to hold 158 beds. The capacity changed to 138 patients after an additional remodel occurred in 1957. The hospital was then renamed Ottawa Valley Tuberculosis Hospital in 1960, and by 1970 it was nearly empty. In 1972, the use of the second floor was shuttered and the entire hospital closed its doors in 1973. While the hospital was winding down operation on January 10, 1972, it was agreed that the hospital would be transferred to the Allen County Board of Commissioners. Because of its relatively remote location and the use of hard-to-clean-up substances such as asbestos in the construction of the original 1911 building, the city of Lima did not prioritize demolition of the building. It's rumored to be haunted as well, and around Halloween of 2020, a large surge of trespassing at the site occurred, which led to an increased police presence and crackdown on trespassers. So don't even think of trying to visit. Number 10. Newbury Airplane Boneyard. In Newbury, Ohio, resident Walter Saplata hosted a collection of military aircrafts from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Though often called an airplane graveyard, Walter would have preferred the term sanctuary, as he was saving the aircrafts from being turned into scrap metal. The sanctuary featured approximately 20 stray aircrafts that Walter collected from his scrapyard job in Cleveland, junking thousands of warplane engines that were declared surplus, according to his son Wally Saplata in a November 2007 issue of Air and Space magazine. Walter used to open his property to the public, but in recent years, the aircraft boneyard has been kept private. He passed away in November 2010, and today it is unclear what remains of the aircraft graveyard. Number 9. Geauga Lake Amusement Park. What was once the world's largest theme park is now an overgrown land of decaying roller coasters, empty concession stands, and abandoned ticket booths. In 1925, the park cemented its place in amusement park history when the Big Dipper roller coaster was built. At the time, it was the largest roller coaster ever built, but soon tragedy struck. Following all of its success, the park experienced some setbacks. In 1942, the park was hit by a tornado, 6 people were injured, and the park experienced a lot of structural damages around $50,000. Further tragedy struck in 1952 when a massive fire engulfed parts of the park, destroying many key features of the park, including the famous dance hall, the theater, the roller rink, and the bowling alley, amounting to $500,000 in damages. From 2000 to 2004, the park was expanded and became Six Flags Ohio. From 2004 to 2007, it became known as Geauga Lake again under the ownership of Cedar Fair. But on September 21st, 2007, Cedar Fair announced that the park would not be reopening, and it has been abandoned ever since. Number 8. Cincinnati's abandoned subway. In the 20th century, Cincinnati decided to build a subway system after canals quickly became even more of a nuisance than they had been when they were bringing in trade. The plan was made in 1912 to build a 16-mile rapid transit rail system in a loop around the city, with a branch undergoing and heading downtown. More than 80% of the people of Cincinnati said yes to the new railway, but work on it didn't start until after World War I on January 28, 1920. Despite several delays, the 2-mile underground portion of the subway was completed in 1923. Proposals came and went in the 30s, but none were implemented. A 1948 study finally ended the Cincinnati subway for good, though efforts to do something with the tunnels have been constantly ongoing for more than half a century. Ideas have included a bomb shelter, a shopping and nightlife district, a massive wine cellar, and more rapid transit. The latest proposal is for another subway. I-75 was built, destroying a large segment of the underground passage, but one of the city's best kept secrets is the fact that sections of the original subway still remain, including all 4 of the stations put in during initial construction. Today, all these passages are sealed off and they are used by Cincinnati Waterworks only. Most of the entrances have been gated or concreted over. Now access is both illegal and extremely difficult, and no people, this is not a challenge. Number 7. Chippewa Lake Park. Tucked away in the Medina County, there's a rusted, lost, forgotten Ferris wheel. What was once Chippewa Lake Park is now just a few piles of amusement park ruins and the lone Ferris wheel. From 1878 to 1978, the amusement park was a popular, thriving destination for family entertainment. It closed after the final owner, Continental Business Enterprises, closed it due to lack of attendance. After the park's closure, its rise and structures were left largely untouched and unmaintained for over 40 years. Today, remnants of it creepily stand abandoned, rusted, and long forgotten. And fun fact, in 2008, a cast and crew from Los Angeles filmed the horror film Closed for the Season there. Number 6. Kerr's Run Colored School. This schoolhouse for Black American children is one of the oldest remaining in southeastern Ohio. Currently, it's boarded up and overgrown with brush. The school educated children from the 1st to 8th grade, including James Edwin Campbell and James McHenry Jones, 1st and 3rd presidents of what is now West Virginia State University. The school remained in operation from the late 1880s through the early 1900s, and in 2007, a historical marker was added to the school's site. The sign briefly documents the history and legacy of the school. Now, the school is right beside an old church, and you can visit outside, but you shouldn't try to enter either building as they are in unsafe condition.
At number 5 is Cali in Colombia. Cali, located in southwestern Colombia, is one of those spots you might want to think twice about visiting, because it's got some serious problems with violence and crime. You've got stuff like substance trafficking, human trafficking, and all kinds of gangs running the show up there. And get this, the law enforcement folks often can't keep up with all the crime and corruption happening in the area. Now, it's not just about where you're from or how good your Spanish is. Whether you're a longtime resident, a backpacker, or even a member of a famous band, safety is a huge issue here. Armed robberies are way too common, making it a dangerous place to be. People often fall victims to things like muggings, assaults, and credit card theft. And some seriously awful things happen when victims try to resist robberies. So it's best to stay informed and cautious when you're in these parts of South America. At number 4 is the Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. Definitely butchered that too. The biggest salt flat in the world. It's like stepping onto another planet like the one from the Star Wars franchise. Imagine this vast expanse stretching endlessly with bright white salt as far as your eyes can see. It's a surreal sight. Now, why is it off limits to solar adventurers? Well, picture trying to navigate through what seems like an infinite stretch of pure white. It's not just about getting lost in the terrain, you guys. This isn't your average stroll in the park. The surface might look smooth, but there are hidden dangers like soft spots where your vehicle might sink or salt mounds that could throw you off your track. This barren salt flat means that there are no defined roads or landmarks. It's like a blank canvas just waiting to confuse you. You could be driving around for hours with the only thing changing in your environment is the time of day. So it's definitely not a stroll you can take lightly. Better to explore this mesmerizing wonderland with somebody who knows the ropes or through organized tours. At number 3 is Iquitos in Peru. Deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, you've got this city that's like an island in the middle of a jungle. It's not your typical city with roads leading in and out. No. You arrive here by either boat or plane. Now, the thing about Iquitos is that it's a gateway to some seriously wild parts of the Amazon that are straight up off limits. As you venture out from Iquitos, it's like stepping into this maze of green, dense, untamed jungle that goes on and on. But here's the kicker. Not all of it is open for exploration. There are chunks of this terrain that are a no-go zone because imagine this dense foliage where paths disappear quicker than you can say adventure. You've got wildlife that's both beautiful and, let's just say, not the most welcoming if you stumble into their territory. And then there's the whole uncharted thing. It's like wandering off without a map in a place that's huge and mysterious and you're definitely not gonna find your way back. So while Iquitos may seem like the starting point for a grand jungle adventure, some parts around here are best left untouched. At number 2 is the Madidi National Park in Bolivia. Picture this place as a biodiversity hotspot, like a treasure trove of nature's wonders, packed with dense rainforests and a parade of diversity life. But a lot of these areas here are off limits, not because they're hiding secret societies or anything like that, as far as we know, but for a really cool reason. Conservation. Imagine wandering into a rainforest where jaguars prowl like they own the place and monkeys swinging from tree to tree. That's just a snippet of what you would find here. But to keep this natural wonderland intact, some parts of the park are a no-go zone for curious adventurers. They've got these zones marked out to let the critters and plants do their thing without our meddling. And at number 1 is La Ilha de Queimada Grande, also known as Snake Island in Brazil. Off the southern coast of Brazil sits an island nobody dares to visit. It's called the Snake Island and it's off limits for a pretty good reason, if you could tell by the name. Legend has it that once a fisherman who went too close to this island was later found unalived in his boat, surrounded and covered in bodily fluids. This place is like a snake paradise, but not the good kinds of snakes. It's home to the golden lance head pit vipers, some of the most lethal snakes out there. Brazil made it illegal to visit this island because these vipers mean serious business. These snakes are special. They've evolved in isolation. They're even more lethal than their mainland cousins because they've only had birds to prey on, so their venom is extra strong to quickly take out entire birds. Bite from one of these guys could take you out in an hour. Now nobody knows the exact number of snakes here, but it's a lot. Local legends say that pirates or rising sea levels brought them, but the truth is that sea levels rose thousands of years ago, isolating the island and letting these snakes evolve differently. Now despite the danger, some folks want the snake venom for medicine, as the venom has shown potential in alleviating heart conditions, which has led to something of a black market demand for the venom. For some lawbreakers, financial allure is incentive enough to risk their own lives on this island. At number 10 is Carcasas in Venezuela. This place is like a hotbed for some seriously dangerous gang activities. These aren't your regular street groups. We're talking about basically militias armed to the teeth with heavy weapons like all kinds of firearms. These guys are basically their own military force. The units in Carcasas have more firepower than the actual police. They basically control entire neighborhoods and the people living there are pretty much scared for their safety all the time. Carcasas has one of the highest crime rates in the world with nearly 41 homicides per 100,000 people. Now one of the big shots in this chaos is a guy named El Koki. He's a big deal in these parts. His group controlled huge neighborhoods until a while back. Now the thing is, he's different from other leaders. He's never been to jail, he runs it from outside of prison walls, and he already lived most and longer in his line of work. The government tried to make things simpler with things called peace zones, which essentially told these groups to stop doing crimes and we'll leave you alone. But guess what? Instead of calming down, they just used that time to gather even more weapons and grow even stronger, turning into a huge mess that made these mega gangs even scarier. So while this place isn't technically banned from the public, anyone who fears for their life should definitely steer clear of this city. And number 9 is Colonia Dignidad in Chile. Colonia Dignidad was like this eerie, self-contained mini society nestled in Chile's countryside. Founded by Paul Schaffner, a former official from the fascist group from World War II, you know the one. This place seemed like a utopia from the outside with lush gardens, schools, and a hospital, but inside was total nightmare fuel. There were tales of this dude's iron-fisted rule, brainwashing, manipulation, and all sorts of creepy mind games. Cut from the rest of the world, living in this controlled environment, people spoke in whispers about the severe trauma that went on behind the closed doors. Physical, psychological, you name it. But it gets even darker. Colonia Dignidad wasn't just about its weird internal rules. It had ties to the Chilean military dictatorship in the 70s and 80s. Rumors swirled around them being involved in all kinds of horrible things and serving as a secluded base for clandestine operations. The Chilean government eventually stepped in during the 90s and investigations were launched. It got its name changed to Villa Bavaria, trying to erase that haunting past, but the stigma remained. Even to this day, it's closed off, with the remnants of a sinister past and ongoing investigations shrouding it in a shiver-inducing mystery. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is the Cueva de los Tallos in Ecuador. This isn't your average cave. Legend has it that this cave holds some serious secrets, mysterious metallic objects that are a little bit reminiscent of extraterrestrial technology. There are whispers that these items might be ancient artifacts left behind by a lost civilization. Some say they may hold mystical powers or knowledge beyond our understanding, maybe even relics from a highly advanced ancient society. But here's where things get fascinating. The indigenous tribes in the area have their own spin on these tales. For them, the cave and its treasures are intertwined with their folklore. Some legends talk about the cave as a gateway to the underworld, or a place where spirits dwell. The metallic objects might be seen as gifts from their god or remnants of ancient heroes. But inside this cave is like navigating a maze while blindfolded, as the passages are labyrinth-like. You take one wrong turn and you might as well be lost in a puzzle. But it's not just about the twists and turns. Indigenous folks around these parts believe the cave is off limits for a reason. For them, it's a sacred place tied to their culture and beliefs. So it's not just about respecting the maze, it's also about honoring their traditions. The mystery behind this cave remains intact because access is tightly controlled, and rightly so. Who knows what secrets might still be hiding in those winding tunnels? We may never know. At number 7 is the Javari Valley in Brazil. These tribes in the Javari Valley are like living time capsules, preserving traditions that go way back. Their cultures are a fascinating mix of ancient customs, rituals, and ways of living that have passed down through generations. Their daily lives revolve around what the land provides, as they're masters of survival in the jungle, hunting, fishing, and gathering fruits and plants to meet their needs. So the Javari Valley is where you'll find these groups of indigenous people who've chosen to stay completely isolated from the outside world. So no smartphones, no internet, just their own way of life that's been going on for centuries. Now why the lockdown from the outside population, you ask? Well, these tribes haven't had much contact with the modern world, and you know how it goes. Introducing them to our world could expose them to diseases they've never encountered before. They might not have immunity to fight off a common cold, let alone something stronger. So to protect them and their traditions, the Brazilian government has put in strict rules, making it a no-go zone for outsiders. It's all about preserving their way of life and letting them thrive without interference. At number 6 is the Cerro Sarisariama in Venezuela. I'm sorry, I totally butchered that. This place is like a real-life alien landscape straight out of a sci-fi movie. What makes it special is those big old sinkholes called sima, which are like deep craters that look like as if a chunk of the earth just vanished. These sinkholes are enormous, like giant natural wells, some reaching over 350 meters in diameter and dropping a dizzying 300 meters. But these sinkholes are off limits, because down there, it's a whole different world, a home to unique life forms that adapted to this bizarre environment. The delicate balance of this ecosystem, completely isolated from the world above, needs protecting. So scientists and explorers aren't allowed to roam freely to keep these fascinating sinkholes safe and sound. I mean, you would have thought that this place was banned for your own protection from falling into these crazy sinkholes, but no, the preservation of unique wildlife in these ecosystems is definitely the priority here.
Porton Down is a science and defense technology campus in Wiltshire, England. It's home to the UK's Defense Science and Technology Laboratory, which has operated for over a century, and it's one of the country's most secretive military research facilities. Its controversial reputation dates back to World War I, when Allied forces were shocked by the advanced German nerve agents, so the UK set out to develop its own. By the end of the Second World War, Porton Down focused on arming the UK with nerve agents while also developing defenses against them. The facility has come up against some serious allegations of unethical human experimentation, though. One infamous case is that of leading aircraftman Ronald Madison, who died in 1953 after being subjected to sarin nerve agent tests. Over the years, it's estimated that up to 20,000 people participated in various trials at Porton Down. The site is also known for its connection to the development of CS gas, a riot control agent, especially during the period of unrest in Northern Ireland. In more recent years, Porton Down played a big role in analyzing the Novichok nerve agent used in the 2018 Salisbury poisonings. Again, work like this is essential, but with the secrecy surrounding the facility, it's hard not to wonder what else could be going on. Detention Site Green, often referred to as the Cat's Eye, once, or possibly still does, operate in an undisclosed area somewhere in Thailand. Once again, it was jointly operated by the CIA and the Thai government. It became infamous for its brutal interrogation methods, but the Thai government has consistently denied having any involvement. Detainees have been held in coffin-sized boxes for hours, waterboarded repeatedly, some have said up to 100 times in a single month, walling, where you're slammed against a wall repeatedly, sleep deprivation, and methods of humiliation have all been used. used. A 2014 Senate report described these methods as inhumane and pointed out that they yielded little useful information. By the end of 2002, reports began to surface about the existence of this facility, and it was closed down, with prisoners just being transferred to another black site in Poland. Tucked away in the Australian outback near Alice Springs, Pine Gap is officially known as the Joint Defense Facility Pine Gap. It's run by both the US and Australian governments. The facility has this collection of massive satellite dishes for high-tech communication and surveillance. Officially, it focuses on intelligence gathering, satellite tracking, and missile detection. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ever since the site was built, it's been surrounded by controversy. In 1975, a private plane flying near Pine Gap's airspace had a bit of a bizarre incident. The pilot and passengers spotted this large white object taking off from the base at an incredible speed. After landing, they were apparently told by investigators to forget what they saw and never speak about it. Obviously they did, and there have been rumors and conspiracies about what's really going on at the facility ever since. Some think that Pine Gap is a testing ground for advanced military technology, similar to Area 51. It would make sense after all. The remote Australian outback would be pretty ideal for testing drones and aircraft. There's also talk about the facility possibly being involved in cyber warfare, developing strategies to defend against hacking and disrupting enemy systems. Really, what this place is most likely for is its role in operating spy satellites. Given that it's jointly run by the CIA and Australian intelligence, and because the facility has all this sophisticated technology, it's highly possible that it's just used for gathering intel on foreign military activity. And, of course, possible alien research. The Cheyenne Mountain complex is officially a military installation that serves as a command center for NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. The complex is carved right into the side of a mountain, making it super fortified against everything from nuclear attacks to natural disasters. Seriously, they designed this place to withstand a 30 megaton nuclear explosion from about a mile away. The facility has been operational since the 60s, which is fitting because it really is like something out of a spy movie. There's this massive steel door that weighs 25 tons protecting the high-tech operations inside. Supposedly, the place is equipped with advanced communication systems, allowing military leaders to coordinate defense strategies in real time. While most of us will never get a peek inside, the complex does have a fascinating history. It's been involved in tracking potential threats to North America and has had its fair share of close calls during the Cold War. The facility isn't used as much today, apparently, but it's still there. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia is another one of the government's secret bunkers for when things go sideways. Officially, it was built so the government can continue operating in case of a national emergency. Located in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Mount Weather is a self-sufficient facility that can house high-ranking government officials and military personnel if total chaos was ever to ensue. It's packed with everything from advanced communication systems to medical facilities. The place was almost a complete secret, that is until 1974, when it was mentioned in the Washington Post and the Associated Press after a plane crashed into the facility. The public doesn't know a ton about what happens inside Mount Weather though, but there are plenty of conspiracy theories. Some people believe it's used for shady, classified government. Raven Rock, often referred to as the other White House, or the underground Pentagon, is a highly secretive military installation that everyone knows about, located in the mountains of Pennsylvania. Officially known as the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, this facility was built as a backup command center for the United States government in the event of a national emergency, primarily nuclear war. It was built during the Cold War to make sure the government could continue operating if things got bad enough. Raven Rock was kept largely under wraps for decades, but thanks to satellite images and the internet, word got around. The complex is a massive underground facility with offices, communication centers, and living quarters, all designed to support high-ranking officials. It's completely fortified against nuclear blasts, making it one of the most secure locations in the country. The facility is connected to the Pentagon via secure communication lines so that they can get immediate responses during emergencies. There's also a rumor that the site has its own power supply so that it can operate totally independently for long stretches of time, which makes sense. This thing was basically built to withstand a nuclear apocalypse. Somewhere in the city of Temera in Morocco is the Temera Interrogation Center, somewhere you'd never want to find yourself. The site was, or possibly still is, a secret prison officially run by Morocco's intelligence services, but it's believed to operate along with the CIA, especially when it comes to interrogating suspected members of terror groups or political prisoners. The prison is rumored to use some pretty disturbing interrogation tactics. Some former detainees have said that they were told repeatedly that the place was a slaughterhouse and that they'd be leaving in pieces. The Moroccan government denies any claims of physical or psychological torment, saying that they do everything by the book, but that's just not very easy to believe. The US has often outsourced interrogation to its allies. This gives them some wiggle room to deny having anything to do with the practices that go on in these places. Area 51 has been talked about to death, but have you ever heard of Area 6? It's also in the Nevada desert, just a few miles away from the more famous Area 51. Officially, it's used for testing and developing military aircraft, but could there be other stuff going on? The site consists of a long runway with a bunch of large hangars at the end. It's surrounded by a hefty amount of security, and because it's lesser known than Area 51, some believe that Area 6 is the actual location where the US government is doing all its experiments with alien technology. There have been claims of strange lights in the sky and unusual aircraft sightings in the area, which would make sense seeing as it's officially used to test and develop aircraft. Question is though, do they have access to technology from beyond this planet? Good luck finding out. Not only is the area completely off limits, obviously, but even the airspace above it is restricted. Dugway Proving Ground, about 85 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, Utah, is a military installation established in 1942 to test biological and chemical weapons. It's one of the largest military testing grounds in the United States. They conduct tests to defend against biological warfare, developing vaccines and whatnot, but on the other hand, they're also said to develop their own bioweapons. The site has seen its fair share of controversies, particularly concerning safety protocols and the potential for accidents. One of the most infamous incidents happened in 1968, when a nerve agent accidentally escaped the testing facility, resulting in the deaths of thousands of sheep in the surrounding area. The accident was aptly named the Dugway Sheep Incident. Luckily, it was just sheep that were killed, but it's clear that things could have been far worse. It would be great if facilities like this didn't need to exist, but unfortunately, they kind of do, because bioweapons exist and there needs to be some level of preparedness. Mount Yamata is the highest mountain in the southern Urals of Russia. There's rumored to be a secret underground bunker beneath it. Satellite imagery has revealed extensive excavation work in the area since the fall of the Soviet Union, ramping up in the late 90s under Boris Yeltsin's leadership. This construction caught the eye of intelligence analysts who started to wonder what was really happening beneath the mountain. During the Soviet era, 2 military garrisons were established nearby, along with possibly a third one, and these garrisons were later unified into a closed town known as Medjugorje in 1995. It's estimated that around 30,000 workers are stationed in this town, so exactly what is going on? Well, the Russian government has never given a straight answer, but I mean, why would they? If someone's building something in secret, they tend to be a little shady when questioned about it. They're not just gonna be like, oh, well, you caught us, here's exactly what we're doing. In a 1996 statement, Russia's defense ministry said that they don't disclose details about facilities like this because it kind of defeats the whole point.
Surfers at Point Mugu keep seeing armed guards appear out of nowhere on the cliffs. That is when people realized there were tunnels under the beach. Point Mugu Naval Base sits along the California coastline. Everyone knows about the visible runways and aircraft hangars, but what the public did not know until recently is that a network of restricted tunnels runs beneath the cliffs. These tunnels were originally built during the Cold War, but instead of sealing them, the Navy reinforced them and expanded them. Today, they are guarded constantly. Even beachgoers who accidentally wander too close to the cliffside entrances are approached by armed patrols. Some of the tunnel entrances are disguised with rock-colored coverings, others are hidden behind locked metal hatches set into the base of the cliffs, and satellite images show ventilation shafts that were added in the last decade, suggesting that the tunnels are still in active use. Under one of the most famous hotels in the world is a classified bunker guarded non-stop, and guests staying above it have no idea it exists. The Waldorf Astoria was more than a luxury hotel. It served as a diplomatic site for US presidents, foreign leaders, and high-ranking officials. To protect these individuals, the government built a hardened underground room known as PEOC East. It was designed as a secure communication bunker, and what makes the Waldorf bunker mysterious is not that it exists, but how it is guarded. Access tunnels leading to it are monitored 24 hours a day by federal agents. Surveillance systems track movement throughout the basement, and specific service elevators are programmed to lock automatically if someone without clearance enters them. The government has never released a description of the bunker's interior. It is unknown whether the bunker is still used or if it has been updated. Even after the hotel changed ownership, federal control of the bunker remained. There is a patch of desert where drones vanish from radar, and the military guards it without telling anyone what is being tested there. Black Dart began as a counter-drone program. The Navy tested detection and interception strategies for unmanned aircraft, but over time the program expanded and moved into a heavily secured zone near Lake China, California. This section of desert is constantly patrolled. It contains large shielded structures, sensor arrays, and underground access points. However, no documents describe what the Navy currently does there. Satellite imagery shows unusual activity, craters appear and disappear, temporary shade structures are built and removed, aircraft without identifiable markings are seen entering the area, yet none of these events appear on public flight logs. What makes this site more mysterious is that the Navy shut down public references to Black Dart years ago. The program still exists, but in total secrecy. A remote patch of desert covered in ancient petroglyphs is protected by armed guards, and the government refuses to say what they built under it. Near Nye County, Nevada, is a canyon filled with ancient rock carvings. Archaeologists have studied the area for decades, but in the early 2000s, a fenced compound was suddenly built near the center of the canyon. This compound is guarded 24 hours a day and includes a large underground entrance. Researchers attempting to document the carvings have been stopped by federal officers and told that the land has been reclassified. No public notice was ever issued. The restricted area contains a single large building, several sensor towers, and ventilation shafts carved into the canyon walls. This suggests that the facility extends deep into the rock, yet there are no documents describing construction, funding, or purpose. There is no proof and no explanation for this intense security. It seems like it is simply a blank space with guards. Mount Weather is already one of the most secret places in America, but there is a second facility nearby that is guarded just as heavily and rarely mentioned anywhere. Part 1 of this series covered the main Mount Weather facility, but what most people do not know is that FEMA operates an auxiliary site only a few miles away. This location is hidden within the Blue Ridge Mountains and is protected at levels identical to the main complex. Residents who live near this auxiliary site report constant patrols, unmarked vehicles, and fences that appear to shift in location over time as the facility expands. Satellite images show new roads carved into the forest, along with reinforced entrances that lead underground. Unlike the primary Mount Weather facility, the auxiliary site has no official name. Government documents refer to it only with coded location numbers, and FEMA refuses to discuss any operations there. There is a building inside Fort Meade that even soldiers stationed there cannot enter, and no one knows exactly what goes on inside. Fort Meade in Maryland is headquarters to the National Security Agency. The base itself is heavily guarded, but there is one specific building, simply known as OPS-2B, that stands out from the rest. This place is surrounded by its own perimeter inside the base. Access is restricted to a select group of NSA personnel, and even high-ranking officers at Fort Meade do not know what is stored or conducted inside. Contractors who work in other NSA buildings say that the security around this place is drastically stronger and monitors every movement in the surrounding area. This building is known for being windowless, constantly vibrating from the machinery inside, and connected to underground levels that are not documented on any public construction plan. What makes the situation even more unusual is that this place continues to expand. Satellite photos show new armored sections added in the last decade, but no reason has been given for why a single building on an already secure military base requires non-stop, top-tier protection. There is a vault under Manhattan, guarded like a military fortress, and the government will not fully explain what is inside. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York has a vault buried 80 feet below street level. Everyone knows it stores gold. What people do not know is how much security surrounds the vault and why. The vault is monitored 24 hours a day by armed officers, motion sensors, earthquake sensors, and air pressure sensors. These are normally used in nuclear facilities, not financial ones. The deeper corridors require staff to pass through compartments that seal behind them before the next door opens. While the Federal Reserve says the vault stores around 7,000 tons of gold, independent auditors have never been fully allowed access to verify this number. Certain rooms connected to the vault have no public explanation. Even within the Federal Reserve System, only a handful of people have access to the deepest sections. Because the vault sits at one of the lowest bedrock points in Manhattan, some analysts believe it houses emergency backups of financial networks or classified materials completely unrelated to gold. Los Alamos is known for nuclear research, but there are buildings on the campus so restricted that the employees who work next door have never seen the inside. Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico is enormous. Its mission appears scientific, but some of its buildings are treated almost like separate worlds. Technical Area 55 is one example. While the lab publicly states that the area handles plutonium work, certain wings inside TA-55 are completely unlisted. Workers who have spent decades at Los Alamos say they have never been told what goes on in those secured areas. Construction crews brought in to renovate nearby buildings report being escorted away anytime their projects brought them too close. Sensors line the trees near the area, and guards patrol the perimeter non-stop. The government's official explanation has always been that these sections are simply hazardous, but the security goes far beyond standard hazard protocols. These buildings remain active at all hours, lights stay on even during holidays, deliveries come in at night, and audit records for these wings are classified. Locals call it the compound, but no one knows who owns it, and anyone who walks near it is confronted instantly. Hidden in the woods of Warren County, Ohio, is a fenced compound that has been guarded for decades. The fence is topped with razor wire, the perimeter is covered in motion sensors, and the entrance has a guard booth that remains occupied 24 hours a day. The strange part is that the property is not owned by the military, the state, or any company listed in public records. When residents attempted to identify the owner, they found the land is registered to a non-existent corporation that has never filed taxes. Utility records also show something suspicious. The compound draws a steady amount of electricity every day and every night. Even during storms and outages, the power does not fluctuate. Whatever is happening inside requires uninterrupted energy. Yet despite repeated attempts, officials have refused to comment on the facility or confirm which agency controls it. A telephone building in downtown Milwaukee is guarded like a military bunker, and no one understands why a phone company needs this level of security. This building has no windows, no public entrances, and no company signage. It is a part of AT&T's old Long Lines network, a series of hardened communication centers built during the Cold War. While most Long Lines sites have been decommissioned, the Milwaukee building is the exception. It is protected 24 hours a day by armed security, reinforced steel doors, and surveillance cameras that point at every angle of the sidewalk. Eyewitnesses report guards approaching anyone who lingers near the building for too long, and leaked NSA documents revealed that AT&T facilities were used as interception points for classified monitoring programs. Dulce, New Mexico is a tiny town, but drive toward Archuleta Mesa and the atmosphere changes instantly. Locals warn visitors to stay away, black SUVs appear seemingly out of nowhere, motion sensors line the roads, and the closer you get, the clearer it becomes that someone does not want people near the mesa. The federal government denies operating any facility in the area. There are no official buildings listed, no public records, and no acknowledged activities. Yet dozens of eyewitnesses have reported helicopters without markings, bright lights flashing at night, and what looks like the glow of ventilation shafts inside the rock. Whatever is inside Archuleta Mesa has been guarded for decades, and the security has only intensified. With no official explanation, this remains one of the most mysterious, restricted areas in the country. Green Bank is famous for its radio quiet zone. Cell phones, Wi-Fi, and anything that emits radio waves are banned. Everyone thinks the security is because of the massive Green Bank telescope, but this is only part of the story. Residents report that certain wooded areas near the observatory are patrolled constantly. These patrols are not conducted by local police. Witnesses describe unmarked trucks that appear at the exact moment someone wanders too close to specific forested sections. Some of these areas contain fenced-off structures that do not appear on any public map. They are guarded day and night. People have tried to hike around the fences and were intercepted almost instantly by security personnel who refused to identify themselves. Even stranger, the observatory has the authority to shut down electronic devices within the zone without warning. This includes cars, generators, and other equipment, but no one has ever explained why these powers are needed in areas that are nowhere near the telescope. The Teapot Dome scandal involved illegal oil drilling on federal land almost a century ago, and what most people do not know is that part of the land contained enormous natural caverns that later became a restricted site. After the scandal ended, the government sealed off these caverns and placed them under continuous surveillance. Today, the area is surrounded by fences, motion detectors, and armed security. No public tours exist, no geological surveys are allowed, and the Department of Energy refuses to confirm what is stored there. What makes this even more mysterious is that satellite images show ventilation systems and what appear to be reinforced entrances built into the ground, yet there are no public records describing construction at the site. Teapot Dome is a place that the public forgot, but the federal government never stopped watching. Quincy is known for its massive tech presence, including data centers for Microsoft and Yahoo, but locals talk about one facility that stands out from the rest. It is a windowless structure surrounded by cameras, fencing, and armed guards. Unlike the tech centers, this building has no corporate logo, it is not listed on any company website, and it receives deliveries at night from trucks with their license plates covered. Rumors about this building intensified in 2018 when residents reported hearing a deep humming noise coming from underground. Others noticed that the facility stayed bright 24 hours a day, even during storms and power outages that shut down other buildings in the area. Internet analysts noticed that Quincy is the site of a major backbone connection for global communication lines. This has led to speculation that the anonymous building is a government interception point, but no agency has ever confirmed this. Whatever its purpose, the non-stop security makes it clear that someone is protecting something extremely sensitive inside. Oak Ridge National Laboratory has a long history of nuclear research. The campus is enormous and much of it is restricted, but several structures known as the unlisted buildings are so secret that even workers with high clearance levels cannot access them. Employees refer to these buildings using codes instead of names. Some lack building numbers entirely. They have no public descriptions, no tours, and no official acknowledgement. Security officers guard the entrances around the clock, and anyone who walks too close is questioned. If you look at satellite views, you can see the structures clearly, but if you overlay the official layout, the buildings vanish it as if they have been erased. Former employees have stated that these buildings contain experimental facilities unrelated to public projects. Others believe they house classified energy research, but no one knows why the secrecy needs this level of constant security. Dugway Proving Ground is known for chemical and biological testing. The entire installation is heavily guarded, but the area known only as the restricted zone is treated differently. There are military bases that allow some level of press access, but Dugway does not, and the restricted zone goes even further. Guards patrol the fences 24 hours a day. Sensors cover miles of desert, reinforced checkpoints sit on empty dirt roads, and drones patrol overhead. In 2012, a group of hikers accidentally crossed into an unmarked part of the zone, and within minutes, 4 helicopters surrounded them. They were detained, questioned, and escorted out by armed personnel. The reason behind this extreme security has never been explained. Officially, Dugway handles defense research, but the restricted zone is never mentioned in public reports. Whatever is inside, the government treats it as something far beyond normal military secrecy. In the middle of the desert sits a tunnel system so heavily monitored that even standing near the fence can trigger a security response. Everyone talks about Area 51, but the Nevada National Security Site might be even stranger. Specifically, the location called the Forgotten Tunnels by locals. These tunnels were originally created for nuclear blast experiments, but after testing ended, instead of sealing them, the government increased the security. Today, the tunnels are surrounded by barbed wire, motion detectors, and long-range cameras. White trucks with government plates patrol the area day and night, and anyone walking near the boundary is stopped. What makes the tunnels mysterious is that no public research has been conducted there in decades. There are no scheduled activities and no official purpose, yet guards protect them continuously. Denver International Airport is famous for conspiracy theories, but the real mystery lies beneath the surface. Construction workers have confirmed that deep underground, tunnels were built during the early development of the airport. These tunnels were supposed to be part of a baggage system, but when the system failed, the tunnels were sealed. Except not all of them were. One section remains active. Employees say that guards stand watch 24 hours a day near service elevators that lead below the airport. These guards are not from airport security, they are federal officers. Whenever maintenance crews request access to the lower levels, they are denied unless a federal escort accompanies them. Even then, workers are only allowed into specific sections. The existence of an underground bunker has been supported by multiple contractor reports, but no agency has admitted what the bunker is used for. Given the size of the airport, analysts believe it may be a continuity of government location, but again, the level of secrecy does not match any official explanation. Denver International Airport's deepest level remains one of the most strange and most secure spots in America. No place in America is guarded more tightly than the mountain that holds Raven Rock, except the second mountain that the government refuses to talk about. Raven Rock in Pennsylvania is a massive underground complex designed to act as a backup Pentagon. It is heavily guarded and well known, but what most people do not know is that there is an extra site located several miles away that receives the same level of protection with none of the public acknowledgement. This second site is visible on satellite images as a fenced-in area with several structures that look similar to Raven Rock. But unlike Raven Rock, it has no records, no designation, and no government statement confirming its purpose. Locals say they regularly see military vehicles entering the private road that leads towards this site. Helicopters circle the area at night, sensors line the woods, and the gate is guarded 24 hours a day by federal officers with no identifying insignia.